Welcome, Dr. James Beckett, Sports Card Insights. I want to thank my sponsors, Topps, Panini, Upper Deck, Heritage Auctions, Huggins & Scott Auctions, Mike Stadium Sports Cards, Burbank Sports Cards, ComC.com, and Beckett Media, Beckett Grading, Beckett Authentication. So here's an episode for your listening enjoyment. You were a big-time tennis fan, observer,
I still love tennis. I just don't get to watch it nearly as much.
What is Ivan Lendl's rookie card? Because this came in a question from a guy named Jeff.
I don't know, but he's got to have something in the early 80s.
Yes. In the late 70s, he has a sportscaster card.
That's got to be a great card.
Yes. Okay. And then he's got a NetPro card.
He was dominant the entire decade of the 80s. He probably had about a 15-year career as a top 10 player.
And he started playing golf after that or something.
He started playing golf. Plus, he got a gorgeous young lady to marry him, and they went off into the sunset. God bless him. When he was at his peak, and the one year I did the stats at Wimbledon, he had this little sports car, I guess he rented or owned in London, and he'd drive it onto the campus of Wimbledon each day. He actually drove the car in that parking place for him on the grounds. It was great to see that. It also would have been a great autographing opportunity, except since I was doing media type stuff, I really couldn't do that. I want to say this. I love watching Ivan Lendl play tennis. He was actually my favorite of that era because he was so good and so methodical, and he just would break you down. In the 87 final, he played Miroslav Masir, and Miroslav Masir was a graceful player. His nickname was like the Big Cat. Wonderful player, great ground strokes. Early in the second set, Lendl and Masir decided to have a backhand shot-like contest until one of them missed. It must have been 40 shots. Go watch it. And eventually Masir folded. And once Masir was the one that missed the shot and had to go into the net, you knew the match was over. Lendl was in the finals of the U.S. Open 8 straight years. That's just pretty impressive by itself. Plus, after that, he never got to the finals. But he continued getting into quarters and semifinals in the majors until 92 or 93 before he retired. And that's why I'm saying he had a 15-year career as a top-level professional.
In the modern hobby now, where people are looking beyond baseball, beyond basketball, football, hockey, all the sports, they're looking at tennis and other sports. Do we not know what the recognized rookie card, RC, is for Ivan Lendl? My thesis is, even if the first card that came out is the sportscaster card, because of the precedent with Gretzky and Magic, if those aren't rookie cards, then no cards in that oversized sportscaster set can be. But I don't know. If you put it on eBay, it's a Ivan Lendl pre-rookie card, XRC.
How about Ivan Lendl first card?
That would be probably accurate, I think.
He's 19 or 20. Sportscaster's not made after 1979 or 80. He's no more than 19 or 20 when that card comes out. So that's going to be his first card.
Yeah, his debut, I think, was in 78. The sportscaster card is a 79 card. So it's early in his career. He had to have a track record to get a card. And I'm sure it's a nice looking card. But once the hobby determines that something is not a rookie card, or that set does not have rookie cards in it, then it can't be. And yet Ivan Lendl, I think, goes many years then without getting a card.
There weren't tennis cards in the 70s and 80s, really. Chris Evert doesn't have a lot of cards either. And she's a 2-decade great player. That's even a better example of where do you put Chris Evert's rookie card? There's no 70s tennis cards. These sportscasters are about it. I'd rather have a Chris Evert card than an Ivan Lendl card. I think she's more legendary.
So if you had these sportscasters cards, and let's say you slabbed them, then they'd be described, they'd be legitimized, and you put them on your table, would you expect to have a lot of interest? Or they're oversized and curious?
I think I'd have some interest. We'll call it the really smart person. And I don't mean book smart. They may not be hobby smart, but the smart person who understands there weren't a lot of cards in that era. All of them didn't stay in great condition. There's just not a lot of early cards of these people. So the person who thinks all that out would say, I want that card because it's a good card to have or a good card to hold.
Whether or not it's a rookie.
Whether or not
it's an early card, the earliest card of a tennis great.
One of the things with Lendl, too, is Evert's in some of the earlier, I think there's 2 or 3 or 4 Chris Evert cards in Sportscasters. I think there will only be one Lendl card, and I think it'll be in one of the higher Sportscaster series, which are also much more difficult cards. Chris Evert is on a card that says tennis fashion, showing her in a dress. But it doesn't actually say Chris Evert, but it's obviously Chris Evert. Even in the 40s, 50s, 60s, they're still more available than the ones that are Series 97 or whatever, the one Magic's in, the one Gretzky's in. Lendl's got to be in one of those series too. That's really scarce.
I've had episodes about XRCs and RCs and PRCs and first cards and all that stuff. Are you saying that doesn't bother you that much? You're not such a hobby purist that you're not just looking at the card and saying, this is a nice card, it's an early card, maybe even his first card that ever came out.
Shout out to our friend Victor. We went round and round on this. I told him he was Diogenes, looking for the last real rookie card. He actually then decided to research after we finished my interview on his show about who Diogenes was and learned why I was saying that. There's like maybe 3 or 4 real rookie cards pre-war. And the rest of it's not really so much known. 41 Pee Wee Reese play ball. That's a real rookie. 39 play ball Ted Williams. That's a real rookie card. I think there's a 36 DiMaggio. Chris Speaker T206. That's right around when he began playing in the majors. That's a real rookie card. There aren't that many real rookie cards out there in pre-war. That's why I'm not such a purist. Just an early card is sufficient.
I know, but where we agree, you and me and Victor all agree that it ought to be truth. Don't say something's a rookie card if it's not. You got to tell it what it is, but don't force something into some kind of a massaged definition of rookie card that's convoluted. Just say, you know what?
And I know some people
rookie card, but it's the first card that was nationally distributed.
That's also showing up in non-sports.
Exactly.
People are using these European sets or these British sets as the rookie cards of various people. And I don't want to say they're wrong or they're right. I think that's why you can use a first card concept or the earliest card concept and not be evasive in any way. I think that's a great thing to say, first card, or one of the earliest known cards of the person.
In the old days, in the 70s, those were not illegitimate, but they weren't considered. The European cards, especially anything with German language on the back and stuff like that, those were not cards that people put in the catalog and the hierarchy of collectible cards for North America. It was really a North American hobby. Really, in the 70s, there wasn't even that much South America.
The Topps Venezuelan cards, thanks to our good friend John Ramirez, we were the first people that actually cataloged those cards sometime after I began the almanac, like the late 90s. John was so thrilled somebody was going to actually catalog them. He went to where he was staying and printed me out the checklist so I could put them into our database. So that has to be 98 or 99, and we were the first people to print the Topps Venezuelan checklists.
I know, which was a real contribution because they're really cool. They're not all exactly the same front and back.
67 is a set by itself. They added the 2 Venezuelan major leaguers. Yes, it's cards 1 to 198. 199 and 200 are new Venezuelan players. So there are some interesting quirks in there.
Okay. Is Wahoo McDaniel more famous as a wrestler or as a football player?
Nowadays, football player, when he was living wrestler.
What a hedge of an answer, Rich.
It's true, though. I know. I was shocked because he's only on 1 or 2 football cards. I believe his 67 Topps is as a Miami Dolphin. It's not even a New York Jets card. He made his name as a New York Jet because the public address announcer said, "Tackle by who? Wahoo!" And that became the thing. Even if he was 10 yards away from the play, Wahoo made the tackle. But then he became a wrestler after his playing career and became such a popular wrestler that it boosted up his foot. But now when you look at Wahoo McDaniel, there's probably not a lot of wrestling film on Wahoo McDaniel. So you probably have to revert back to the football cards for him, as you do for Ernie, the Big Cat Lad, and other people as well. There's a bunch of guys in that era. Some are much better known as football players. I believe Bronco Nagurski was also a professional wrestler. Yep. And not the one from the 50s, but the original Bronco Nagurski. Too. Alex Karras wrestled for a while, too. There's a whole subplot of wrestlers, also a subplot of football players and some baseball players that became actors. Johnny Berardino, the actor, you know him better as an actor because he was a better actor than a baseball player. Wes Parker, when we were talking about Jimmy Spence and the Wes Parker thing that they do at the National, Wes Parker was a regular on a TV show, a summer replacement show from Norman Lear called All That Glitters in the late 70s. It was like the summer replacement for Mary Hartman, pre-Fernwood Tonight, pre-everything else. But Wes Parker, I believe he was a piano player on that show, if I remember correctly. This is rambling, so we're allowed to do these memories.
Yeah, but does this rambling feed into Danny Black's collecting interest? of two-sport athletes, or does he draw the line in wrestling?
Do you consider Ed Too Tall Jones a two-sport athlete for his foray into boxing?
I don't think Danny does. I think Danny's looking at the major sports. Okay, new question. When you're putting cards in plastic sheets in an album, and most of the set is horizontally oriented, but some of them are vertical, how do you put the vertical cards in the top-loaded 9-pocket sheets?
Don't you mean that the other way? That most of the cards are vertical, and what do you do for the horizontal cards?
Yes, that's what I meant.
I think you said it backwards.
Vertical ones, it's pretty obvious how they go in, but if they're horizontal, actually they're horizontal, but they need to be presented in a vertical disposition. So are they facing left or facing right? Do you have a concept of that?
Yeah, to me, because of how my eyes work, I want, if possible, the player's name to be on the right, like 71 Topps with the Thurman Munson card number 5. Also going to be on the middle of the page. I want the words Thurman Munson to be on the right side of.
So basically, the top of the horizontal card would be toward the spine of the album.
Yes.
And the exception to that would be if the card back is vertical, you wouldn't want that to be upside down.
No. But there are some sets you have to deal with that. If you are breaking an 87 Donruss factory set or an 88 Donruss factory set.
Well, yeah.
And I'm trying to remember, but I think one of them, the backs are reversed from the wax cards. So if you're breaking them, they're going to be backwards. They're all vertical cards, but then the backs are going to look goofy on some of them.
Aren't 54 Topps like that too?
Yes, 54 Topps are like that too. And I think 86 Topps may have some of that as well.
Anyway, if your concern is mainly the front, then you're saying, which I agree with, is if the information of the bottom of the card would be to the right.
Yes.
I'll agree with that. The other question from the same guy was talking about the problem we had back, he said it's 1998, when we named Jerry Meyer the card company executive of the year right before they imploded. This just pointed out the difficulty of making subjective decisions in our editorial, in our magazine, let's say, because we had price guide guys that had their ear to the ground of what was going on in the hobby. And then we had an editorial team that were outstanding in their journalistic integrity, but they were looking at it in a different angle. Anytime you're getting into something very subjective, it's hard to say you're right or wrong. In that case, we could say, yes, we were wrong.
We announced it almost the day they declared Chapter 11.
Now, do you realize I never liked doing that kind of stuff? Since I was the price guide guy and I wanted as much as possible to be having empirical reporting, that's something that's almost impossible. It became a popularity contest. I acquiesced because everybody said, oh, we got to do this. We're going to pick the card of the year. I said, it's totally subjective. We're not about being subjective. We're about letting the data speak for itself. Now everybody wants to see this. I said, well, no harm, no foul. This was a foul.
And it was harm too, yes. And we did that in every magazine for a whole month. Not just baseball, but basketball, football, and hockey.
But that wasn't the only time. I'm just saying that was a problem waiting to happen because we were so careful, Rich, with our price guide deadlines. Hey, we're locking in these prices now, and the magazine's going to come out in a few days. It's going to be released, and we don't want to look stupid. Something could happen. We were conservative as much as possible to be able to point toward empirical results, not opinions. So
that was just one of those things we could just say, okay, you know why you're doing it, but unfortunately, it was like the worst possible.
I never wanted to do it. I just felt like I was shooting down things a lot of times. And at some point, you got to say, hey, we got to fill pages with opinions. A lot of the editorial stuff was opinions. I just didn't want us to be an opinion magazine as much as an editorially and rigorous price guide magazine.
Pinnacle, in retrospect, a lot of what they were doing was very innovative. It just didn't work. That sounds weird to say, but they were doing the cans. They were doing the Pinnacle inside with the coins.
You pointed out a bunch of things that were bad ideas, though, Rich, I think.
Well, that's true.
But
they were trying.
They were trying.
It was a tough period because we were still recovering in a lot of ways from the baseball strike. And I suspect if Pinnacle could have held on, they probably would have ridden the wave of 98 a little better. Because 98, the baseball hobby was starting to fly again.